Adam finally had a quiet hour. No messages, no meetings, no one asking for anything. He opened his laptop, took a deep breath, and said to himself, "Okay, this time I'm going to focus." He had an important task in front of him, something that actually mattered. A project he had delayed for days. Not because he didn't care, but because every time he tried to start, something strange happened. His hand moved to his phone. Not because he needed it, not because there was anything urgent, just automatically. He unlocked it, checked one notification, then another, then opened a random app, then watched a short video he did not even enjoy. A few minutes later, Adam looked up with that familiar mix of frustration and guilt. He had wanted to work. So why, the moment he tried to focus deeply, did his mind suddenly crave distraction? That is the part many people misunderstand. It can look like laziness. It can feel like a lack of discipline. But often, something deeper is happening. Because usually, your mind does not crave distraction most when nothing matters. It craves distraction most when something does. Adam noticed this pattern clearly. If the task was easy, he could do it. If it was light, simple, or familiar, he usually had no huge problem starting. But when the work was important, nor mentally demanding, nor emotionally loaded, suddenly everything else became interesting. His phone, his desk, his email. Even cleaning something random felt appealing. And the more important the task was, the stronger the urge became. Why? Because deep work asks more from your brain than distraction does. Deep work asks for effort, uncertainty, mental strain, and the uncomfortable feeling of not instantly being good at something. Distraction offers the opposite. It gives your brain something easy, something familiar, something that creates quick relief. That is the first hidden reason this happens. Your brain often uses distraction as an escape from discomfort. Not necessarily from the task itself, but from the feeling the task creates. Adam was not always avoiding work. Sometimes he was avoiding confusion. Sometimes he was avoiding the pressure of doing something important. Sometimes he was avoiding the possibility of struggling, failing, or not doing it well enough. And distraction helped him escape that feeling immediately. That is why it can happen so fast. He would open his laptop with good intentions, but the moment his brain felt the weight of the task, it quietly looked for the nearest exit. And the easiest exit was almost always digital. His phone was fast, easy, rewarding, no uncertainty, no effortful beginning, just instant stimulation. But here is what made the pattern stronger. Every time Adam escaped into distraction, he felt a little relief. The pressure dropped. The discomfort softened. His brain relaxed for a moment. And that moment taught his brain a lesson. When this kind of work feels hard, escape helps. That lesson matters. Because once your brain learns that distraction reduces discomfort, it starts reaching for it earlier. Not after 10 minutes. Not after 5. Sometimes after 10 seconds. That was Adam's real problem. He was not only fighting distraction, he was fighting a learned escape route. And the route had become automatic. But there was another layer too. The tasks Adam kept avoiding were usually the ones without an instant reward. Deep work is strange like that. At the beginning, it often feels unclear, messy, and mentally expensive. The reward comes later, sometimes much later. But digital distraction gives reward now. A new post, a new message, a new video, a new piece of novelty. Tiny bursts of stimulation with almost no effort. So when Adam sat between one task that felt hard now but valuable later, and one screen that felt rewarding now but meaningless later, his brain often chose the thing that felt better in the moment. Not because it was smart, but because brains are highly sensitive to immediate relief. And that creates a dangerous illusion. Adam would tell himself, "I'll just check one thing." But what he really meant was, "I want a quick break from this uncomfortable mental state."
The check itself was not the real goal. The escape was. And once he understood that, something important became clearer. The problem was not only the phone. The phone was just the tool. The real pattern started a few seconds earlier, when the task created friction inside him. That was the moment everything changed. Because if the real problem begins at discomfort, then the solution is not simply have more willpower.
The solution is learning how to stay with that discomfort long enough to enter the work. Adam tested this idea one afternoon. He sat down again to work on the same important project. And almost immediately, the urge appeared. Check the phone. Open something else. Do anything easier. But instead of obeying it, Adam paused. He asked himself, what am I trying to escape right now? The answer was not work. The answer was the uncomfortable beginning. That mattered. Because once he saw the feeling clearly, he stopped treating distraction like a random accident. It was a response, a predictable one, and that meant he could interrupt it. So Adam made 3 changes. The first was simple. He stopped asking himself to finish the task. That was too big, too heavy, too abstract. Instead, he gave himself a much smaller entry point. Not write the whole thing, just work for 5 minutes. Or write the first ugly paragraph. Or open the file and solve one small part. This worked because the brain often resists the entrance more than the work itself. Adam kept imagining the whole mountain. But what he really needed to do was take the first step. And once he was inside the task, the urge to escape often became weaker. The second change was environmental. Adam realized he had been expecting self-control to beat convenience. That is a bad deal. So he made distraction harder to reach before the work even began. Phone in another room. Tabs closed. Notifications silent. Only one document open. This did not magically erase the urge, but it gave the urge more resistance. And that small resistance mattered. Because many distractions are not deep decisions. They are quick impulses. The easier they are, the more often they happen. The harder they become, the more likely the impulse passes. The third change was psychological. When Adam felt the urge to check something, he stopped treating it like an order. He treated it like a signal. A signal that the work had become uncomfortable. That he had reached friction. That his brain wanted relief. And instead of escaping immediately, he practiced waiting. Just 1 minute. Sometimes even 30 seconds. Not forcing perfect focus. Just staying. Breathing. Looking at the task. Letting the urge rise without instantly feeding it. This was difficult at first. Because the urge felt convincing. It always seemed like checking one thing would help him reset. But most of the time, it did the opposite. It broke his attention. Scattered his energy. And made returning to work even harder. A week later, Adam noticed something. He still felt the urge sometimes, but it no longer controlled the whole session. Because he now understood what it was. It was not proof that he hated work. It was not proof that he lacked discipline. It was often just the brain reacting to effort, uncertainty, and delayed reward. And when he stopped panicking about that reaction, it became easier to handle. He also noticed a deeper truth. The more emotionally important the task felt, the more gently he needed to enter it. Pressure had been making him harsher with himself. He would think, this matters, so I have to do it perfectly. And that thought created even more friction. So he replaced it with something simpler. This matters, so I only need to begin. That changed the experience. Because perfection creates paralysis. But beginning creates momentum. Eventually, Adam's work sessions started feeling different. Not easy, not effortless, but more honest. He still had to cross the uncomfortable beginning. He still had moments when distraction looked attractive. But now he could recognize the pattern earlier. The craving for distraction was often not random. It was his brain trying to protect him from mental discomfort in the fastest way it knew. And once he saw that clearly, he no longer had to keep mistaking escape for rest. That is important. Because digital distraction can feel like a break, while actually leaving you more scattered, more frustrated, and more drained. Real rest restores you. Escape just postpones the discomfort and adds guilt on top of it. So the next time you sit down to do something meaningful and suddenly feel a strong urge to check your phone, open another tab, or do anything else, pause and ask, what am I trying to escape right now? Then make the entry smaller. Remove the easiest exits. And stay long enough to get past the uncomfortable beginning. Because often, the hardest part of deep work is not the work itself. It is surviving the first few minutes without escaping. And once you can do that, focus becomes much less mysterious. Adam looked at his phone again near the end of the week. The urge was still there, but this time he put it face down, opened the file, and started with one small piece. Not perfectly, not brilliantly, just honestly. And a while later he realized something. He had not needed more motivation. He had needed a better understanding of what his brain was doing. If your mind also keeps escaping into easy stimulation whenever something meaningful gets hard, watch how to stop overthinking every decision next. Subscribe to Behind the Mind for more hidden reasons behind human behavior.